My wife and I both work. I do the computer nerd routine, playing sysadmin for a bunch of machines and company network. She teaches English at the local high school. For the last 2 years, she has also been going to night school to work on her master's degree. There isn't much money in teaching, and she hopes that an advanced degree will help her get more money or a better position. We met in college. We were both pretty focused on our schoolwork then and didn't really party too much in school. We dated each other exclusively for the last 2 years of school and were married 6 months after graduation. About a year later, we found out that Kim couldn't bear children. It was disappointing, but we adjusted our plans and expectations and moved on. Kim is a tiny little thing, just 5 feet tall and 100 pounds. She wears her wavy jet black hair just past shoulder length. Her emerald green eyes are large and innocent looking. She has dimples that reveal the imp in her when she is thinking naughty thoughts. We were each other's first and only lover. We had a lot of fun in college and after we were married. Eventually things settled into a comfortable routine. After 7 years of married life, fun was something that we worked in a couple of times a week. Nothing wild or kinky, just close and comfortable. We usually spend a little time cuddling, then we do some fun to fire the engines up, followed by pretty standard fun in the bed. She almost always likes it and finishes and always seems satisfied and pleased that I show my desire and love for her. Kim had classes on Monday through Thursday evenings. She also stayed late at the gym on Tuesday and Thursday nights, not getting home until after 11. She might be small, but she works out like a fiend. Between the weightlifting and the Stairmaster, Kim has a hard little body. That schedule had settled into a pretty steady routine. Kim would come home after school and toss a meal together for us, change into jeans, and get her books and homework ready for class. I'd get home around 5 and we would eat and catch up on each other's day. Once she left, I would take care of household chores and maybe go for a run before zoning on the tube or the net. Kim would come in and hit the shower. Weekend evenings we would eat out or catch a movie. We weren't big on going out to clubs. It was a comfortable routine. After months of this routine, things started changing just a little. Kim started going straight from teaching to the college to work with her study group, leaving me to scrounge dinner for myself. I also noticed that she started coming home showered. She said it saved time to shower at the gym rather than coming home. I accepted these things at face value and gave them no thought. I started picking up on little changes also. I just never attributed them to the right cause. We stopped having any fun on her school nights. I just figured she was tired. We still had plenty of fun over the weekends. I also noticed that she had a fair amount of new underclothes in the wash. I just thought it was nice that she had sexy stuff like that and never really followed it up with her. She also started getting real touchy about letting me play with her laptop. We had a nice home machine, but she needed a good laptop for her schoolwork. I found her a great deal on one from a guy at work who always had to have the very latest thing out on the market. He would go nuts if he was 6 months behind the 10-0 curve. There were some nice games on the machine, and it was fun to be able to sit in the bed and play them or surf the net. About the time she started with her study group, she told me she didn't want me playing on her laptop. She claimed that she had all her notes in there and didn't want me to mess anything up. It didn't matter how hard I tried to convince her that I wouldn't hurt her files, she wouldn't let me touch her machine. She even got so that she would close it up if I happened to walk up behind her. I wrote it off to the mysteries of the female half of the species and let the matter drop. One day, about 2 months after her study group began, she called me at work to tell me she had a flat tire. Her car was in the school parking lot, but it had a flat and she wouldn't be able to get to the college if it wasn't fixed, and she couldn't fix it in her dress and heels. Since we had planned on buying new tires for that car soon anyway, I told her that I would come by her school, throw on the spare, and go get the new tires in time for her to have her own car at class in the evening. My boss didn't mind me splitting out early once in a while, as long as I made sure to have my cell phone and beeper with me. Lucky for me, I got to the high school during classes. That meant that there were only a couple of dozen kids wandering around campus instead of the hundreds that oozed out of the buildings for lunchtime. It took about 20 minutes to slap the spare on the car and head to the nearby NTW for new rubber. The place was, of course, packed. The guy at the counter told me it would be an hour and a half before they would get the job done. I went back to the car to see if I could find anything to read. There was nothing but textbooks in her bag in the back seat, but her laptop was sitting there. I happily fired it up and started playing games. I got bored after 40 minutes of goofing around and started looking around her hard drive. She did have a bunch of school notes in one directory, lots of dippy education gobbledygook that passes for higher education in that lightweight field. She had another directory with a bunch of zip files and a lot of big .doc files. The names looked like dates. I tried to open the files and found them all password protected. Normally, that would slow me down for about 10 seconds. But I did not have any of my slick little tools with me here in the NTW parking lot. Feeling sneaky, I copied a handful of the files to a diskette and dropped it in my pocket. I decided to use the rest of the waiting time cleaning the car up a little. I put her back in the bag and cleaned the trash up out of the floors and from under the seats. I popped the trunk and started going through the stuff back there with an eye to cleaning and organizing it. Next surprise. There was a bag with a bunch of clothes stuck in the trunk. There were nightgowns, lingerie, and a couple of racy dresses that I had never seen before. All of the clothes looked like they had been worn. A couple of the pair of panties were pretty crusty. In the bottom of the bag was a small camcorder. There were no tapes or anything, just one of those recorders with the little LCD screens instead of an eyepiece. This was enough to finally furrow my brow and make me start wondering what was going on. I wondered if this belonged to a friend of Kim's, or if Kim had bought this stuff and had been afraid to show it to me. I couldn't figure it out. While I was standing there with a lacy half-cup bra in my hand, the mechanic came to get the car. I put everything back in the trunk like I found it and let him take it away. I took the car back to the school for Kim. That night I started thinking about all of the little changes and clues that I hadn't really paid attention to. From the big things I mentioned earlier, to a couple of little bruises on her neck, to some of the new things she was trying in bed once in a while. I started thinking that maybe my wife was having fun with someone else. I had just about convinced myself that she was cheating on me when she got home. She was dressed in her jeans and a nice white blouse, looking chipper and happy. When she came in, she gave me a big kiss and thanked me for saving her with the car. She seemed so happy and bubbly, just like the girl I fell in love with. I quickly wrote off my suspicions as total paranoia and felt guilty for even thinking of such a thing. The clothes in the trunk probably belonged to one of her girlfriends or something. The next day, as I dressed for work, I saw the diskette I used when I made the copies of those funny encrypted files on Kim's computer. I almost dropped it in the trash, then decided to take a peek anyway. I knew she wouldn't be fooling around on me, but I thought there might be something kind of interesting in the files anyway. When I got to work, I dropped the disk in my desk drawer and started entangling problems with our system. By the time they were fixed, the disk was forgotten. I had enough guilty feelings for suspecting something of my wife that I really didn't want to pursue the matter of her encrypted files. Things moved on. The Christmas break came and went. A new semester started for Kim. She told me that her classes were really tough ones this semester and that she would have to spend a lot of time in the library doing research on the weekends. I told her that I hated that we would be losing the time together, but that I understood her education was important enough to her for us both to sacrifice some. About a month into the new schedule, I was noticing that Kim seemed aloof and a bit withdrawn. She was not terribly interested in our dwindling personal life. Her work and her studies seemed to have consumed her. I decided to surprise her at the library on Saturday and try to lighten things back up for us. I bought a little heart necklace and planned to take her to a nice little restaurant for lunch. The library is 3 floors and an uncounted number of little study carrels, nooks, and crannies for people to get lost in. I searched the library for over an hour and never found Kim. I couldn't find her car in the parking lot either. By the time I gave up looking for her, I was having to really be active to ignore all of the pointers that screamed affair. When she got home that afternoon, I told her I had a gift for her. Her response was to tell me to wait until she took a shower. She said she had been studying hard all day and that she felt sticky from when she was sitting in the sunshine by a window while she did her research. I waited until the shower was running, then went to our bedroom. She had tossed her jeans and sweater on the bed, but there were no underclothes to be seen. The crotch of her jeans was soggy and smelled. That was the point at which I decided to find out just exactly what was going on. I knew that my innocent wife wasn't cheating on me, but all of the signs told me something was up. I wanted to find the rational explanation to all of it so that I could lay my suspicions to rest. Monday morning, I put the diskette with the files I copied from her computer into my machine. I have a handful of great password crackers that I pulled off the net. WFWCD will snap a MS Work protected file open in no time, FCZ and Zipcrack will bust open those zipped files overnight. Hint: get PGP and use a 128-bit key if you want to lock a file from viewing. The internal encryption protection that comes with most commercial software is about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. What I found was about 200 emails from guys all over the place who were responding to an ad. It showed up in a lot of the responses: MWF swinging alone, hi. I'm looking for discreet partners to satisfy my newfound desires. I'm 26, petite, in shape, free. I love to get nasty with men, couples, and women. I just started playing and can't get enough. I'll consider doing just about anything sexual at least once. Write me and maybe we'll play. Many of the emails were pretty crude, some had pictures, others sounded pretty pathetic. There were tons of them. I felt shaky. My pulse raced. Then, I zoomed in on the age. That was 3 years younger than Kim. Maybe it was something she downloaded and kept copies of. Even if it was just her looking at the stuff on the net, that would be quite a change from the Kim I thought I knew. My Kim loved fun and was open to things, but didn't get worked up over reading stuff or net surfing. However, I was a lot more willing to believe that Kim had tripped across this stuff and found it interesting than believing she was actually the one who posted the ad. I decided to do a little investigating. I started trying to figure out how to get my hands on her laptop for a day. Monday night, while Kim slept, I put a little clear nail polish on the connections for her laptop's removable hard drive. I let the polish dry and then slipped it gently back into the slot. Tuesday night she came home early. She was so upset about her broken laptop that I thought for a second that she had caught me out. She calmed enough to explain that she couldn't even boot her machine and that all of her schoolwork was on there. I put on my sysadmin hat and said that in the worst case we could rebuild all of her applications easily enough, and that we could restore her schoolwork from her backups. As I said that, I could tell from the look in her eyes that she, like most everyone else in the world, didn't keep any backup at all. I told her to leave the machine with me and that I would see if I could do anything before she had to go to class the next day. I suggested that she blow off her study group and come home after work to see if I got the thing running. I got a strange look from her when I said that, then she grasped at the possibility that I might save all of her schoolwork. The next morning at work, after dealing with my normal morning chores, I pulled out her laptop and a bottle of nail polish remover. It took about 30 seconds to get the machine running again. I spent the next half hour or so going through all of the history files and other footprints that are left on a PC that tell you all about what the machine has been doing lately. I found that most of her use of the laptop was her school stuff. Research notes, visits to the school library web and FTP sites, and boring papers. There was, however, a pretty significant chunk of use that was completely unrelated to schoolwork. There were lots of visits to various adult sites. She had opened a number of image files that had names that sounded like adult pictures. Her newsreader files showed that she downloaded from a bunch of news groups. I looked through her MS Outlook journal and found that much of her fun-related activity happened between the end of her workday and the beginning of her classes in the evening, when she was with her study group. The contacts file had lots of phone numbers associated with men's, women, and couples' first names. There were hardly any last names at all. Finally, I looked at her calendar. That is when that cold, tingly feeling started in my belly. She had clearly marked classes on Monday and Wednesday nights, but on Tuesday and Thursday nights she had names and times written in. The location spot usually read, Ben Mall, although a few times there were addresses. I closed everything up and started thinking about my next step. After work I her laptop to back, telling her that I pulled the HD and straightened out a bent pin. I said that it booted right up, but that I hadn't done any checks to make sure her files were okay. She was visibly relieved at both the fact that it worked and that I hadn't been on her machine. She took off for her study group and classes. As she pulled out of the driveway, I went into our files and pulled out the receipts from when she paid her tuition. Sure enough, all of her classes were on Monday and Wednesday nights. Her Tuesday and Thursday evenings were free. As much as I wanted to, it was hard to deny that something was going on. I started looking through her dresser, finding lots of lingerie, but no more damning evidence. I went through her nightstand with an equal lack of results. Finally, in her side of the closet, I found a shoebox containing 3 unlabeled videotapes. The box was stacked with a few others in the back of the closet. It was the only one with any contents. As I stood there in the closet, I knew down inside that looking at these tapes would change my life. On the surface, I dithered, wondering if I had the right to infringe on my wife's privacy by viewing the tapes. I made up some pretty darn good excuses to support just putting the box back and slipping into denial. I couldn't do it, though. I had to look. I locked up the house so that if Kim came in I would have time to at least shut off the tube and VCR. I was shaky and dry-mouthed as I pointed the remote at the VCR and hit play. What I saw in the next 20 seconds gave me the feeling of a skydiving freefall without ever leaving the ground. It was like leaning over the guardrail on a high bridge. My arms and legs were numb. I was forced to finally accept what I had, up to then, so successfully denied. My wife was having fun with other people. The scene on the television showed Kim with some guys. She was doing it with him. She looked towards the camera and said, "Stop with that and come here." The camera rocked and steadied. Then I saw another man walk towards my wife and the man she was having fun. He walked up to her and turned to the side, allowing the camera to catch the action. I stopped the tape and just sat there in shock. Aliens at the front door would have been easier to take than this. As the initial rush from cognitive dissonance, I am seeing something I know can't be, eased and some higher thought process began starting back up, I tried to examine my feelings. Beyond the surprise, I was hurt. How could she do this to me? How could she be so deceptive and betray me while she acted so normal a close when we were together? Fun was something we had learned and explored together, something special between us. I also questioned myself. What had I done wrong? Was I not good enough to her? Was I somehow inadequate as a lover? I turned the tape back on. Maybe I could find out what was missing between Kim and I. Maybe I could find an answer from the tape. She continued doing this with two men for 10 or 15 minutes. You could see her tremble and flex. It was at this point that I got my second shock of the night. I was turned on beyond belief at the debauchery of my wife with these two men. I stopped and reran the tape. Then I put it back into its box and tucked the box back where I found it. I couldn't believe that I was still as hard as a rock. I couldn't understand why I was so excited at something that hurt so deeply. I grabbed a beer, downed it in gulps, then I sat at the table with a second beer and tried, with little success, to sort out the confusion in my head. By the time Kim got home that night I had at least regained enough presence of mind to act normally, even if what I was thinking and feeling was so abnormal. She came in dressed in her normal jeans and shirt. She had obviously had a recent shower. I wondered if she had taken it at the gym or some guy's place. I looked at her innocent bright eyes and dimpled smile and saw the face buried in a stranger's you-know-what. It was a good thing I was still sitting at the table. We chatted about normal stuff. She told me the pooter worked great and gave me a kiss to thank me for fixing it. She smelled nice. She seemed normal, like the girl I fell in love with and had been married with for the last 7 years. But my feelings of anger, betrayal, chased that image around in my head until I would scream. I told her I had a splitting headache and went to bed. I called in sick the next day. Since Kim usually leaves for work before I even get out of bed, she had no idea that I stayed home to watch TV all day. And watching TV wasn't all. As I watched those 3 incredible tapes, I did what I did. I stayed at least half all day long. I had watched Kim having fun with 5 different men as well as 2 different women. I was riveted when I watched as a guy named Dan filmed, narrated, and directed. It was, according to Dan, Kim's first time with a woman. I saw her in all manner of activity. Most of the scenes were incomplete, like edits cut from longer tapings. They never showed the entire event from start to finish. Some of them appeared to be taken from a camera that was hidden that no one knew was there. Others were taken by a third party or were fixed on a tripod near the bed, our couch, our floor, or table. By the dates on the films, this had been going on for over a year, but most of the scenes were from the last 3 or 4 months. I watched my wife with total abandon. No pretense at love or any sort of emotional attachment. By the afternoon I was numb. I replaced the tapes and tried to figure out what to do next. I took out the printout I had made of Kim's calendar. Today was a Thursday, no classes. Her schedule said, Dan and Joyce 5 o'clock Ben. Mall. Since there was only one mall around our part of the town, I headed over there. Once I got in the mall I stood in front of the directory for 15 minutes looking through every listing. There was no store named Ben anywhere in the place. It was 4:30, too late to try to get to the high school and discreetly follow her anywhere. As I worked my way through the parking lot in defeat, I saw a Bennigan's in the parking lot of the mall. Aha, broke the code there. I bet she met people there. I backed the car into an out-of-the-way parking place that let me watch the front door. Sure enough, about 10 till 5, Kim went in. I was surprised at her clothes. She had a little short black skirt on that had a slit up the front of her right leg. The skirt was a miniskirt to start with. The slit ran almost to the bend of her waist. She had on big sunglasses and had her hair teased up. She looked very sexy and very available. The guy that held the door for her just about tripped over his tongue. She was alone when she went in. She came out 30 minutes later with 3 others. Dan and Joyce were obviously the couple from the tapes. Kim and Joyce were walking arm in arm and giggling about something. Dan and another man were walking behind watching the women in front of them. They all piled into a Cadillac and headed down the road. I went home and waited. Thinking about what Kim was doing while I sat and waited was making me, well, you know. The feelings of betrayal and hurt were making way for lust. I felt guilty about this. I couldn't believe that something so hurtful could also be so exciting. I went a little crazy. Kim got in at the regular time, showered and in jeans. She looked like she always did when she just got back from the gym. We didn't talk much. It was pretty late and we just headed for bed. When she gave me a kiss goodnight, I couldn't help wondering where her mouth had been earlier. I lay there for hours, listening to my wife sleep a sated sleep, debating with myself. I didn't want to lose Kim. I loved her. I considered confronting her with what I knew and presenting her with an ultimatum to stop. But I feared that she would decide that whatever she was getting outside of our marriage was better than what she was getting at home. I thought about trying to guilt her into telling me that she had done something and use that as an opening to convince her to stop. That didn't seem very likely, though. I decided I needed to know more about what was going on. I would let things ride as they were while I did a little more investigating. Maybe I could figure this out. It would also give me time to reconcile the conflicting feelings running around in my head. The next afternoon, I went back to searching through the closet. When I had found the tapes the other day, I stopped looking for anything else. The rest of the shoeboxes were empty, but I did find a small box with some pictures and receipts stuck in the corner. The pictures were all Polaroids that were similar in nature to the videos. There was one wrenching difference, though. Kim's partner was a very muscular man. He was tall and solidly built. His head was shaved smooth. It was obviously a start-to-finish series of pictures. I have no idea who manned the camera. The series started with Kim and her lover facing each other holding hands. Of all of the pictures, the next in the series had the strongest impact on me. Kim had both arms wrapped around her lover's neck. Kim's eyes were open and looking right at her lover. The look of total abandon I saw in her eyes was wrenching and exciting. The next picture showed Kim. There were 8 or 10 shots of them. As I looked at the picture more, I realized something that made me go back through the pictures again. They had been taken in our house. I had been so focused on Kim and her lover I hadn't noticed the surroundings. She started with him in our living room. I looked at the background in all of the pictures carefully. In one, I could see the picture I had hung in the bedroom 3 weeks ago. My stomach felt the same way it does whenever I lean out over a high balcony. I was breathless. I realized that the conflicting feelings I had fueled my excitement. That my wife could have this complete other aspect of her personality and keep it hidden from me was as appealing as it was appalling. The lady and the S both resided in this woman. I only knew one of them. I took the pictures into the living room, snagging a couple of long necks from the fridge on the way. It was Friday. Kim usually went to the gym after work, but she had no classes. We usually sat around on Friday nights, watched rented videos, then headed to bed early for a romantic candle-lit romp. Kim was due home in an hour or so. I tried to reason out all of my conflicting emotions, but they really weren't listening to reason. My mind spun. I finally decided that I had to confront her about this. I couldn't handle sneaking around following her. I couldn't ignore this. I decided that we had to talk. I threw together a quick spaghetti dinner, put candles on the table and opened a bottle of wine. I figured that things would go much better if we were both a little relaxed when I brought up the subject of the evening. Maybe with the inhibitions down just a bit, Kim and I could discuss this rationally. Kim came in and saw the table. It obviously pleased her that I had taken the time to make us a romantic dinner. I handed her a glass of wine and told her to go put on something more comfortable than her work clothes. She came back 10 minutes later in a little sundress that looked good. We chatted about inconsequential stuff while we ate. I made sure her glass stayed full of the wine. After we finished eating, we moved the candles to the living room and sat on the couch together. I noticed my shaking hands as I set the candle on the coffee table. My lungs tingled with each breath. I had ice in my stomach and burning hot skin. Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next part.